Hi. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how to create an MLA citation for your rhetorical analysis paper. If you were to want to use secondary research or just to cite your advertisement for the end of the paper. Let me go ahead and share with you what I'm looking at, which is this is kind of my lineup of what I like to have available to me when I start making a citation. I've got my whatever kind of document or word composition piece in front of me that I'm going to be typing directly into. I've already got this set for where I want it, which is Times New Roman 12-point font. I like to have open the MLA from the MLA Style Center, the quick guide, just because it provides a really good visualization of what I want a citation to look like. And then I also like to have open the Purdue OWL, which is the Purdue Online Writing Lab, and they have a really fantastic resource that I will link for you in the video description about every possible kind of citation you could ever want, truly. I'm on the online sources here specifically, and I've already scrolled down to an article from an online database because I know that's what I'm going to be citing today. Specifically, this article from I found it using InfoCat. I just typed in advertising and detox. So we've talked a little bit about like wellness advertising and detox teas and stuff like that. I happened to find this very relevant article to that on InfoCat, which we've talked a little bit about how to utilize. So that means we can just jump in with our site. Let's say this is the article that I want to use, right? We know that we're going to be citing, this is a journal article from an online database, right? I already have us kind of set up to look at that. Similar to, how you would cite anything else, you're going to start with your author. Now here, as is the case in most other scientific articles, you've got a lot of authors. And that's because largely scientific research is done in a team. And when you cite articles like this, you want to essentially utilize whoever the first author listed is, because that's generally the person who was the first author on it, or the person running the experiment. Because MLA makes allowances for one author, they make allowances for two authors, but once you get to three authors and more, you use the first author's name, and then you do et al., which is just Latin for and all the rest. So we see here that our author is Kendra August. So we'll start there. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can potentially see a little bit better. And then we use a comma, et al., and a period. And that basically says Kendra August and the rest. And then we want to include our title of the article. Once again, this is pretty basic. It's going to be largely the same for everything that we cite. We want to make sure that we put that in quotation marks because it is a journal title, or it's an article title. I'm sorry, a journal title would go in italics because it is a container. Talk a little bit more about that in a second. But we've got our title here, which is, I'm actually going to directly copy and paste it just because it's a long title and I want to make sure I get it correct. And of course, Google Docs is going to format it to whatever it came in as. So I'd like to change it to what I've been using, right? I don't need it bolded, and I don't need it in this lovely teal font. Black will do just fine, thank you. I will use my quotation marks, end this with a period, and end the quotation marks, right? Then we move into, I believe should be, the name of the journal. So we see here that the name of our journal that we're looking at we're just looking at this information here, is the Journal of Nutrition, Education, and Behavior. Okay, so we want to italicize this. Because we italicize names of things that are containers. So if we go over here and we're looking at our very explanatory MLA template, you'll see it labels things containers a lot. That basically is any sort of receptacle or larger piece of information that contains a smaller piece of information. So to put that a little differently, a book is a container, and it contains chapters. A journal is a container, and it contains article titles, right? So you can think of it like stacking Tupperware or Russian nesting dolls, right? Because you want to start at the beginning of your citation with your smallest container and you work out to the biggest, right? So we've started with our article title, and now we're going to move out to our journal title. And then eventually we're going to move out to our database title. So next we want to, let's look at our Purdue page and see what we want to look at next. Okay, we want to make sure we include the volume and the issue number, which we do have with this one. If you go back and look, it looks like this was volume 51 and number 7. So I would, oh, I don't want that italicized. Number 7. We use another comma. And what would we do next? We put the publication date, which all we know here is that this was 2019. And that makes sense if a journal is published, once a year. So we'll just use 2019. Sometimes, I get a lot of, well, what do I do if I don't have this piece of information, right? Use what you do have. That's the most important. So we'd use our publication date, and then we would use a comma, and then we would have our page range. Looks like this piece is only 1 page, so we're just going to put that page down. So we do P period S 125. I believe we would use a period, but I'm just going to check. Yes, we do use a period. Then we want our database name. Now, the database is not InfoCat. InfoCat is a thing that's specific to University of Kentucky. But if your reader was not a University of Kentucky member, they probably couldn't see. But they might have access to the database specifically that you are looking at. So it looks like the database for this is called the Elsevier Clinical Key. And of course, it's going to take you there. But I'm going to go ahead and type that into our document. And we want to make sure that we italicize this one again, because it is a container. It contains all the stuff that is in a database, journals, ebooks, all that kind of stuff. And we would use a comma. And now we've been taken to our page, and we're going to use our URL from here. We don't have the option to have a stable URL. It just looks like this is all we have, so that's what we're going to use. And then we would use another comma, and we would also want to include the access date. So whatever the date is that you're looking at it. 1 December 2023, and then use a period. You'll see that your spacing is going to get a little wonky here. I like to actually go in and remove the hyperlink because then my spacing isn't as wonky. But this is your citation. You may be saying, what about my hanging indent? Well, that's a very good question. What I like to do is you can do this before you start composing, or you can go back and highlight your citations afterwards. But you can go in and highlight your citation, and then I go up to format, and this is specifically in Google Docs. Every word composition software is going to be a little bit different, unfortunately, but I will go over to paragraph styles. Nope, I will go down to align and indent. And then I go down to indentation options, and I've got this dialog box that pops up, and I go down to hanging, and I click apply. applies it to my citation. And there, I have a complete MLA citation. We will talk a little bit about how to cite an advertisement specifically when we meet next.